beautiful souls. I am so happy to connect with my beautiful soul sister, Karena, Virginia. I have so many words that I won't even use up our time to say how much I love and adore you. And I love working with you because we get to come together and bring some of the deepest healing, wisdom, and practices to the world. And right now, during this coronavirus pandemic, we really need it. So, welcome. Thank you for this time.
Thank you for creating this time together as well. And thank you for being you and being the magical being that you are. It's really beautiful to share with you right now and to connect so we can share this massive love bomb, this dose of love with everyone who finds us here.
Yeah, because right now, just by giving people a little bit of background, my work over the last 20 years has covered things like recovery from trauma, addiction, eating disorders, and resilience. And what a lot of people are not really talking about yet is this pandemic could potentially set many people up for PTSD.
Yes.
We know that the fear and the panic and the stress of it all is creating so much stress and anxiety, fear, depression, that during a pandemic like this, just like with wartime, just like with other crises, natural disasters, tornadoes and floods and tsunamis, we see that as the stress level rises, people need a way to cope. And unfortunately, sometimes those coping mechanisms are very destructive, leading to things like rage and domestic violence and homicide and sadly even suicide. So I'm so grateful that our work over the last few years, helping people heal trauma of all types in our workshops and in our interviews, that now the kind of work that we've been doing on such a deep and cellular level can really come to the fore to help people. So I want to talk about epigenetics, but first I'd love it if you would also share a little of your perspective as a yogi and an empowerment guru, just so that anyone who's tuning in for the first time has a sense of, what have you been up to for 20 plus years that brings you to this moment right now, helping the world?
Yeah. Ooh, so much. In some ways, I feel like I was born for this time of helping, assisting people. In other ways, I feel like maybe this is an opportunity for people to truly understand the realms beyond the physical, and to truly allow themselves to receive their guidance from beyond, and how to do that when there's a belief system around that not being true, or thinking that things need to be tangible in order to be real. But to answer your question, I believe that this is a very, very difficult time. And I also believe that it's a time of cocooning, and in that cocoon contracting, and in the difficulty, it's the time of the mountain becoming the miracle, the fear becoming the love, the darkness becoming the light. And this cocooning, this tightness is creating, just like coal needs to go through that tightness to become the diamond, this tightening is creating wings so that we can become that butterfly. So I do have tremendous hope. I also am as much of a mystic as I am. I'm also quite a realist, and I do see what's going on, and I do feel a lot. So I can feel the collective pain and anxiety and fear. And I myself am working through some of those feelings myself as well. And that leads to what a lot of my work over the past 10 years has been. I mean, past 20 years has been yoga, but the past 10 years has not been so much the physical body of yoga, but more the yogic mind, body, soul, spirit, breath. And working with many people who are not even able to do the physical yoga postures or even desire practicing physical yoga, but to understand that we are much more than this physical body. And the epigenetics is something I've been studying for quite a few years now, which is so fascinating because now science is catching on. So a lot of what I have been teaching has been quite woo-woo in the past, and now there's documentation of it. So just to jump into that, we have the physical body, and then we have the energy body, and then we have 3 other layers outside of the physical and an energetic aura, our electromagnetic field. And in those layers, we carry imprints from our ancestors. So if there is unresolved trauma from one of our ancestors, for example, World War II, or it could go back to slavery. It can go from the studies I've done with some masters in India who've been studying this for a long time. They say it can go back 7 to 8 generations, and that when we heal them, we can actually help heal our own children and grandchildren 7 generations forward as well. But those traumas live in the energy field, and if we have our own blocks in our own energy field, we're prevented from helping to heal the ancestral karma that's in the field beyond that. So the work that I do is to heal what's going on inside of us and in the aura, and to transmute those blocks into radiance, so that if there's like a dark spot in the field, we can actually do a practice to transfer those little blocks and to create alchemy with them to create radiance. And then in our auric fields, we're like sunshine, just shining out, and we become very magnetic beings, drawing in to our lives whatever we need so that we can continue to heal the other layers. And then when we get to the layer of our ancestors, we are healing known or unknown energetic imprints of trauma. We don't even need to know. If someone's adopted, they might not know, but we can still heal those layers. And then what happens is when we come back to the mind and the body, there isn't that same frustration, because we're not cycling back into that place of, I know better, why did I do this again? Or why am I stuck again? Or why am I eating all of this again? Why am I not able to stop drinking? Why am I've worked through it. I've been with the therapists. I've talked about this with my friends, et cetera, et cetera. When we heal those layers, something happens that's quite miraculous, where we start to recognize that those things that we're grasping for or have been grasping for, we no longer grasp for. And then in the last layer of healing, that 5th layer, is where we connect to our guides, to our guardian angels, and to spirit. And that is personal for each of us. And that is our own personal, sacred practice and way. And in this day and age, I think we're all being called to reclaim our own power. And we're seeing that certain dogmas have been holding us back from really being that radiant being that we're meant to be. So in that 5th layer, I like to assist people in finding their own way, in what's comfortable for them, without dogma.
Which I love.
So do I.
Because of course, you're trained in Kundalini yoga, and that brings, to some people, it brings to mind a whole host of associations. But from my perspective, I'm a medical doctor and an acupuncturist. So the training that I got in traditional Chinese medicine and recognizing this energy body and how we can move energy, and exactly as you described, things do get locked, whether you want to call it in your energy body. I can tell you that emotion and stress can cause energy blockages in your physical body. And so what we're seeing, as you described it, is people are finding that they're more sensitive, even more sensitive than they would have expected. And that is quite often because there is some sort of history of trauma. And so for people who haven't yet heard about intergenerational trauma and how trauma is passed down, what we can tell from the psychiatric literature and from neuroscience is that on the most basic level, this concept of intergenerational trauma, it really acknowledges that exposure to extremely adverse events that will impact an individual to such a great extent that even their children and their children's children will find themselves grappling with their parents' or grandparents' post-traumatic state. And I won't go into all of the neuroscience, but there have been wonderful studies that have been able to look at, for example, Holocaust survivors and their children and grandchildren, survivors of genocide, for example, and their children and their children's children. And the thing about epigenetics is there are two pieces that we need to be mindful of today. One is epigenetics just means that something outside of the DNA sequence is impacting the expression of your genes. It's not causing mutations of the genes. So the code isn't altered. It's just the expression. And so that's important for us to know for two reasons. One is if you happen to be pregnant in the first 6 months of the pregnancy, what happens in mom's life and in her body can impact her growing baby on a gene level. But also, if she happened to experience trauma before puberty, when her little eggs were still developing, that can impact those eggs that were forming. So it's important to understand that epigenetics is often just seen as what's going on in the environment, which is true. But the second aspect, besides affecting actual gene expression, we have this other thing, and that is what happens in our developmental period, up until the age of 18. Because as we're children, our brains are developing, and our ability to process stress and handle it and then discharge it is impacted in those early years. And so with the studies that show that people who have survived trauma, their children, up until puberty, were impacted. And the impact happens to come in the central nervous system. And the reason that's important is, unfortunately, many people who survived trauma, they didn't have this knowledge that we have today. So what we know is that many people who were in concentration camps or who were slaves or who were displaced, the First Nations, Native Americans, and so on, they didn't have control. And right now it feels like with this pandemic, we've lost control. I'm here in France where I'm not allowed to leave the house without a letter. I can only leave for 1 hour. I can only go 1 kilometer away. I have to have the date and time on that letter. So there's this sense of losing control, losing our liberty. That is real. But what we know is that we have control over our responses. And that's what I want to focus on, at least on the neuroscience side, so that we can use the techniques that you promote and teach so beautifully, so that we can help people lower their stress response and create some inner calm and peace for yourself, even while things are still going on. Because we can build up our resilience muscles even while the trauma is still here. Of course, it's perfect if you've been doing this for a while because you're already resilient because you've been doing breath work and yoga and meditation and chanting and exercise and positive thinking. But we can also do these things in the midst of the trauma. And I think that's the most empowering stance that we can take so that young people young parents in particular, we can be mindful and we can take back our power. As
Yes.
you were bringing up, these paradigms in the world with the economy and the political structures and the healthcare structures and even the food manufacturing structures, all of that is a little, okay, it's very tainted,
Mm-hmm.
and those structures are crumbling. And
Yes.
so people don't have that sense of trust and confidence that someone else is looking after them. And so it's up to us to reclaim that power. So I just wanted to kind of give this other perspective that even as you're talking about things that maybe people can't see, the etheric body, and what do you mean there's a fifth layer connected to my ancestors? Yes, eventually science will catch up, but the science that we now have that started in the 40s when Waddington first coined the term epigenetics, and then the studies that happened in the 80s with Holocaust survivors, and since then with other survivors of trauma, we do know that there's an impact in the body and in the brain and in our nervous system. And it's not an intellectual thing. It's not that you
No.
can say, really, guys, there's enough toilet paper, there's enough food. Why am I so stressed?
But it's interesting to see, it's very interesting to see the hoarding, right? And also for people who are hoarding, who are trying to figure it out, if you weren't raised in a hoarding home, maybe, what, there's so much more to all of this, right? And also I wanted to add to what you're saying that we also have choices. We have choices of how we can use this time. We have choices of how we can feel, think. Well, feeling is an emotion, which is an energy and movement. So that's something that we often need to heal the field before making that choice. But we can make the choice to do the work to heal the emotions, or we can choose to um, keep giving our power away, right? And some people might be finding that they're leaning on what they know, and so they're holding on to systems because it's what they've been taught and what they know, and watching those systems crumble feels like a loss of control. And that's where I urge people to go into that place of closing your eyes and tapping into your heart and calling upon your angels and your guides and the divine creator of all that is, because that's your contract that you were born with. That's yours, and no one can take that away from you. That's your contract with the creator of all that is, who loves you and holds you and bathes you and nurtures you and rocks you and is with you every single moment of every single day. And as we can't distract ourselves from ourselves as much as we used to be able to, right? Running around, many of us are finding ourselves running in circles in our house. Like, why did I even come into this room? What was I? But if we stop and we pause and we go into that place of stillness and we connect to the divine, we find this magical clarity, and we find intuitive hits or guidance or downloads of inspiration. And we find that this is actually a time where we are being called to create from this stillness. Just as a musician really needs to pick up that instrument, the artist needs to paint with that paintbrush. I know for me, I need to teach these. I've been, a spiritual teacher since I was able to talk, really my whole life. So for me, it's what the divine has given me to share, and I have to share. And I know you feel that way too. You have to do your work. And what is this time about in finding our calling and finding our purpose and honing in on that purpose? So should we do just a brief stillness exercise? Do we
Yes,
have time?
I think that would be excellent. especially because that is where we can regain a sense of control, at least in
Yeah.
this moment, that is good for us by calming
Yeah.
down the central nervous system. And for those of us that are parents, we can model that for our children so they can
Yes.
learn resilience from us. They're going to be
Yes.
doing what they see us do during times of stress.
Absolutely.
And so I definitely recommend that people do some sort of stillness practice, a presencing practice,
Mm.
many times throughout the day, even if it's just 3 minutes, 5 minutes, where you sneak off to the bathroom or wherever you can get privacy. So I'd love it if you could lead us in some breath work
Mm.
that
Yeah.
can help us center in.
Yeah, we'll do a quick one. So let's close our eyes and let's focus on our spine and visualize the spine as a vibrating antenna. And while we feel isolated and separate, using that antenna to connect to vibrating high frequency antennas all around the world, on the earth, and in the heavens, in the higher realms. And we breathe in through the top of the head and we imagine light coming down the spine all the way to the base of the spine. And then as we exhale, we soften the front of the body and we visualize that light coming up the front of the body, the heart, softening the muscles of the face, softening through the forehead, third eye point, and then back to the top of the head. And we do it again. And now as we inhale, we'll inhale for the count of 8. 4 counts in the belly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 counts in the ribs. 5, 6. 2 counts in the chest. 7, 8. And then a big exhale for the count of 1 through the mouth. And now we'll do that same breath with the tongue. If you can curl it, stick the tongue out and curl. Otherwise, just stick the tongue out. Inhale. Now take the tongue and press it to the roof of the mouth. This is sending signals through these meridian points to the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, sending messages to activate the intuition and activate the higher realms. Exhale through the mouth, relax the tongue. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, bring that light through the tongue. So you want to bring it in through the air, down the spine, all the way down to the base of the spine. Remember that count of 8. Then the tongue hits that upper palate. You're activating those meridian points, sending signals to the brain. Exhale through the mouth. And now long, deep breathing through the nose and visualize that the spine is full of the highest frequency of light, and that light is shining out into your auric field. And we say a prayer to the creator of all that is, that all blocks of energy that are not made of light and love, that are in our energy field, be transmuted to radiant light. And now start to visualize, deep breathing in and out through the nose, visualize that any dense energy, any blocks in our auric field are transmuted into rays of light, like the sunshine, coming out in all directions, below us, all the way down into the earth, above the top of the head, all the way up towards the heavens, behind us, to the left and to the right. And again, creator of all that is, we command that all blocks, all heavy energy, whether it's ours or others, that it be transmuted to light and love, and that these energy blocks become rays of light shining out in all directions. Keep that long, deep breathing going. The eyes are closed, they're focused at the third eye point. This helps to quiet the mind from overthinking. A few more deep breaths. You can just rest your hands on your lap. You can bring your hands to your heart center. And now take one more deep breath in. Hold the breath, and we silently say, thank you, thank you, thank you. So it is, so it is, so it is. Bring the hands to prayer, and we bow our head to our higher self and to the divine and to all the guides, all the angels that are swarming in to be with us these days. And now, as we open our eyes, just take a moment to look around in our environment and maybe see if anything looks a little bit different. So maybe there's some more light, maybe the colors are a little bit different. Just take a look around. You might even find that a little animal appeared in your yard. And we can do that so quickly. And as you said, we can go into the bathroom and we can just center ourselves. And yes, in our workshop, we'll be talking about the neuroscience that you'll be talking about and the neural pathways of the brain. And we'll be talking about the physical body, and we'll be talking about the aura, but we'll also be talking about how we can heal the imprints from unresolved issues of our ancestors. But for now, what we can all do is to activate that spine, activate it as an antenna of light, pray, create light in our fields, and by all means, breathe. Just utilize that 8 count in, 1 count out. And if that's too difficult, do 4 counts in, 1 count out. Another breath is just simply the square breathing, which many of us know. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold the breath out for 4. Pranayama is one of the greatest tools that is accessible to everybody at this time.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that. I even feel more peace than I had coming into this. So Karena and I were set to be teaching our annual retreat at the beautiful 1440 Multiversity in Scotts Valley, California. But due to this coronavirus pandemic, we will now be offering that as an online experience, kind of a webinar/workshop. And so what Karena was describing is we will lead you through certain practices, meditations, breath work. I'll be teaching the neuroscience, making it practical, I promise. And included in that is some of my life writing journal exercises that come from my hero course about building up resilience, processing old trauma. And again, it doesn't have to even be the big scary traumas. It can be just the little things that we know is blocking our confidence or impacting our physical or emotional health. So I do hope that you will join us for this experience in May with our dear friends at 1440 Multiversity. We'll be sharing details on how you can join that experience. And as Karena said, use this time to go within, because we are all transforming. This is a transformative journey. It's not that the caterpillar grows wings. A caterpillar, when it goes into this cocoon phase, the entire body of that caterpillar is dissolved and used as the nutrients for this new being that emerges.
Yes.
And that's what we are being called to do. That is what this opportunity is about. It's about going within, really connecting with our values, connecting with our highest self, the creator, and then emerging as a new being. So Karena, thank you once again for your love,
thank you.
for your
Thank you
support.
so much. And everyone here, thank you for being with us. And Andrea, I'm going to miss you in May, and I'm going to miss all of you that were signed up to be with us. And I guess we just need to focus on the silver lining that we have technology, so we can still utilize this platform and share our hearts and love. And I just want to add that we are going to make it through this. we are all going to be okay. We
I
are all
feel
going to
that.
be okay.
I feel that so deeply because I know as a species, we are resilient. You were born resilient. Even if you've experienced trauma, you have
Yes.
these resilience muscles, and we're going to teach you how to flex them and use them so that
Yes.
not only do you survive, but you will thrive again. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I look forward to connecting with you again. Many blessings to you.